What's going on, guys, and welcome to another CDL B-Side. Oh man, what's up, B-Side family? Boy, do I have something to talk about today. So here's a situation that I was in. Well, first let me give you a little background of the situation that was going on here. So recently we had a driver who got into an accident. He was salting the roads, putting down some salt. And for those of you who don't know, like, about plowing or salting with a dump truck, so they fill up the back of your truck with a bunch of salt, and as that salt gets lower and lower to the truck, you know, they fill up the truck with a bunch of salt. They crack the tailgate open, and then salt comes out the tailgate into like this box. It has like an auger, and it pushes the salt through a hole down onto a spreader, and then that's what spreads the salt out onto the road. And when you have a dump truck and you're salting with a dump truck, every now and then you gotta lift the body of the truck up in the air so the salt will slide back to get to the auger. Well, this guy riding down the road, and I'm not sure the exact parameter of the situation. I don't know the specific details, but the gist of what happened is that he was going down the road, had his body up in the air, and he hit an overpass. And he hit the overpass so hard that it knocked the body off of the truck. It damaged some steel beams underneath the overpass, and he got injured. He got injured pretty bad. So basically, this guy said that his body up alarm wasn't working. And upon investigation, they found out that his body up alarm had been manipulated. Now, once again, for you guys who do not know what a body up alarm is, there's like this spring that sits underneath the body. It sticks out like this. So when the body's down, it's in this position. When the body goes up, the spring comes up and it sets off an alarm. And it's like this loud, long beep and this light that goes off inside the cab. And it's like supposed to make you alert and remind you that your body is up in the air. Well, he said his body up alarm wasn't working. They investigated, found out his body up alarm had been manipulated. And what they found out was that his spring had been tucked down. And sometimes guys will do that, not just here, but in other companies. Guys will do that because they find that alarm to be annoying, or if they're doing blacktop, like they're paving a road or something like that, and they got to keep that bed up for a long period of time, they'll tuck the alarm down so they're not hearing that sound constantly go off. But essentially, it's a safety feature. It's a safety feature, to keep you alert so that you don't have an accident like this person had. And I guess he's in some trouble for it. I'm not sure how much trouble. I'm not sure what's going to happen with him, and what's going to happen with him. One of the things that had been going around was the importance of doing a pre-trip, doing the proper pre-trip. And so with this video, that's what I want to stress to a lot of you guys who are getting your CDL. You're working for a company, you just got your first CDL job, and you might get some old timers or even some people who just don't know what they're really doing tell you that you don't have to go through the full thing. You could take shortcuts and stuff like that. But know that sometimes them shortcuts you take have a high risk. Like, yeah, you're going to get out faster. You might save yourself some time. Might have yourself a little more time to eat or whatever. But you're putting yourself at high risk sometimes when you take those shortcuts. Because this is a situation that could have easily have been avoided had the full and proper pre-trip been done. Or it could have been that he took the alarm down. I don't know. I don't know whether or not he did it, or maybe somebody else did it and he got inside the truck and he just went ahead and didn't check for it. Because that's another thing. When you have a CDLB, you're going to find out that a lot of times with the companies that you work for, you're not the only one driving a particular truck. You might not be assigned the same truck every day. And even if you are assigned the same truck every day, if you work like shift work, so let's say you work like a night shift, somebody on day shift is probably driving your truck. So you always want to do your pre-trip because you don't know how well that other person before you might have, did their pre-trip. You don't know who else was in your truck, whether or not they even did a pre-trip at all. And, there's a lot of things that can happen in the yard. It could rain and something could get messed up, from the weather, if it rains or it snows or something like that. So you really want to do your pre-trip. Check all your fluids, do your air brake tests, go through everything. So, I had a bit of a situation where after this guy's accident happened, it's been going around, for like 2 weeks. Everybody's been talking about this accident that happened. I mean, it's kind of like police in a small town. They get that one big thing that happens and that becomes the story of the year. They pulled over a guy going 90 in a 45, and now that's all they're going to talk about for like the next month. And that's kind of like how it happens here. Something happens, and for 2 weeks, that's what everybody talks about. People are going to come up to you and be like, hey, did you hear what happened with this guy? And then, yeah, I've heard it. I heard it like, 8 times before you came over here. So basically, they've been talking about this like crazy, because another thing that happened was management started going around and checking all the trucks, making sure that nobody else's body up alarm was manipulated. And rumor has it that 2 people may be receiving disciplinary action for having theirs manipulated, but whether or not those 2 people, manipulated their body up alarms or not, no one knows. But I think what it comes down to is you're supposed to check that during your pre-trip inspection. We have paperwork. Our paperwork is called a 614, which is basically like a checklist. And you're supposed to check all these things on the checklist. And if something's wrong, then you mark it in as wrong. So basically, I don't know what's going to happen to those 2 people, but they found that one was tucked. One of the body up alarms was just tucked down, because sometimes this alarm is positioned in a way where like you have your frame and you can just kind of tuck it underneath the frame there. And in some trucks, the way the alarm is positioned, you might have to like push it down and then tie a band or something like that around it. So I believe they found one truck had a band and one truck was just tucked. The situation that I had was the day before, I had worked the 12 to 8 a.m. shift. And around 6 a.m., this guy comes in and he tells me, I need to use your truck. Because he has to do, he's training somebody down in like the main yard. So I said, all right. So I did my pre-trip. I knew my body up alarm worked. The body up alarm on the truck worked and everything. So, that was all good. Then later on that day, I had to come in at 9 o'clock because we had a wintry mix going. There was like rain and sleet and snow. Good wintry mix was going. So they asked me to come in early. So I come in early. I do my pre-trip, and my body up alarm isn't working. Now, mind you, a couple hours ago when I checked it, that alarm was working. And then I gave the truck off to this guy. Now I get the truck back, that alarm isn't working. So sometimes what happens is that if it's cold out, you get like that real cold where things are getting icy, sometimes that alarm, it'll be a little finicky. I mean, it's electronics, so sometimes it'll be a little finicky. But then something said, go check that out. So sure enough, I lift the body up, I look down, check the alarm, and sure enough, my alarm is tucked. My body up alarm, that wire is tucked. And now I'm pissed, because I'm like, we've been talking about this for 2 weeks. We've been saying management's going around checking these trucks, and whoever has their alarm down, they're getting write-ups, or they might be getting disciplinary actions. So, and this guy who took my truck, he's a senior guy. He's got a couple of years in. I think he's got like over 10 years in and he's becoming a trainer. So I mean, he's going to be training other people, which that really kind of ticked me off that, you know, he would do something like that. Now, whether or not he did it or not, I don't know. But he was the one that had my truck last. I mean, his name was the last name on the paperwork, because every time a driver gets into a truck, they have to fill out paperwork. They have to fill out the 614 paperwork. So when I handed my truck off to him, he would fill out that 614 paperwork. And then during the day, if some other operator comes to operate the truck that he has, that operator has to fill out the 614 paperwork. And then if he would get back inside the truck to bring it back to this yard, he would have to fill out 614 paperwork again. So, meaning as though he took the truck out and he brought it back, he's the only name on the paperwork. So I'm assuming that nobody else was driving this truck but him, which, you know, kind of leads me to assume that he's the one who put the spring down or the wire down. And like I said, he's a senior guy. He's trying to move up to be a trainer. And we've been talking about this for 2 weeks. And sure enough, you know, he does it. He tucks the freaking alarm. And had I not done my full pre-trip properly, you know, I could have missed it. Manager could have came up, hey, you know, your name's last on the paperwork, you're operating this vehicle, you're in trouble for this body up alarm. Or, you know, because because when you got these winter mixes, you're working a lot of hours. You know, you're doing overtime, and you're pretty much gonna have to keep working until, you know, the storm passes or until management says you can go home. So it could have been a situation in which I could have been tired, that body could have been up in the air, me, you know, tired, not thinking, and then bam, I'm in the same situation as the other guy, you know, hitting something, you know, whether it be a wire or an overpass. So that's the reason why I sit there and I try to, you know, tell you it's the importance of doing these pre-trips. You know, it's not just a thing that you're going to have to do in CDL school just to get your license. Like, no, it's a thing that you're going to have to do every single time you get ready to take a truck out. You want to pre-trip that truck, because it's not just about, you know, some type of compliance, but it's also for your own safety. Making sure your brakes work, making sure you have all your, you know what I mean, that your fluids are all at the proper level. You know, checking your frame and your tires, and, you know, definitely checking all your safety features such as your seatbelt, your horn, your lights, and your body up alarm. It's all super important, you know. One of the things that another situation that had happened to me, because I'm going to go ahead and give you guys a double dose of the stories here, is another thing that happened was I came in one night, and this guy who worked the shift before me, he comes up to me because I'm going to be taking his truck, and so he knew I was taking his truck. So he comes up to me and he tells me, "Don't drive that truck. Those air brakes are not working." And I'm like, you know, what do you mean? Because I've been driving a truck for a while. So I'm like, what do you mean? So he goes in and he runs through the air brake test. And I think it was during the low pressure warning test, and that's where you drop the pressure down and it should come on around like 60 psi. You get this alarm that goes off. It's a low pressure warning alarm. Well, apparently the low pressure warning alarm didn't come on within the right range. But the truck that I drive usually is so old, you know, it doesn't have like exact numbers on it. You know what I mean? You know, numbers are broken up, and it's not really exact. So to him, it was out of range. To me, it was like a little bit in range. So he says, you know, you can drive the truck if you want to, but he's saying that it failed the test and he doesn't want to drive the truck. So I said, fine. So I get the keys, I do my, you know, outside pre-trip, whatever. Then I get inside the truck and I said, well, he just did an air brake test, but I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do another one. So as I'm doing my air brake test, everything's going fine. And then I get down to the EBA test, the emergency brake activation test. That's where your spring brakes are supposed to pop out. Your spring brakes are supposed to activate. And that's supposed to happen between 40 and 20 PSI. So as I'm pumping the brakes down, and getting the pressure to go down, it gets down to like 30 PSI. The spring brake still hadn't popped. But I hear another pop. And then I hear this long, loud hiss. And that's the air just leaving the truck. And I look at the gauge, and the gauge just drops all the way down to 0. And the spring brakes never popped. Or spring brakes never activated. And yeah, that was a complete fail for that truck. Now, had I gone off of the air brake test that this guy had just did before me, and I'm out there driving that truck, I mean, who knows? Those air brakes could have failed on me while I was out on the road. So it's like I said, it's one of those situations where, you want to do your own pre-trip, you want to do your own air brake test. And, when you do it, you're not just, going through and just, quickly looking over everything. Actually check every single thing, because it's not just about some type of compliance, it's about your safety. So that's what I got for you guys for today. Like and subscribe, and let me know in the comments what you think, and some of the situations that you've been through where God before you didn't pre-trip the truck properly. So thanks for watching.